Hey guys, Jay at Broader Performance here. I don't have much to show you today, but I'm gonna start the series on the C4 transmissions. A lot of interest from do-it-yourselfers on C4s. Not a big seller these days for us. Not like it used to be. We used to build a lot of them, but other things have kind of taken over now. C6s have gotten a lot more popular. Engines keep getting bigger. So, now we're on to bigger transmissions, I guess. And 4R70W is popular. Everybody's kind of getting interested in overdrive and things like that now. So, talk about C4s a little bit. Good points, bad points, that sort of thing. What has happened to C4s. C4s were a pretty big fad for a while, and I did a lot of them. My God, I sold a lot of parts. I used to have a lot of parts for them. Not so much anymore if you've looked on our website. It's just, stuff's out of stock a lot. Inventory, the number of things we used to sell is cut way down. I can't get a lot of these pieces anymore. And we don't really make too much brand new for it. Nobody really does. At least anything of quality. And I don't know, it's just, it seems like everybody's just kind of gone. It got very affordable to build a lot of horsepower. So a small transmission like a C4, I guess doesn't really fit the bill anymore. But we still build them pretty regularly, and for what they do really well. I think the biggest problem with them, quite honestly, because like I said, they were a big fad for a while, so you had a lot of kind of fly-by-night shops and things. Oh yeah, I'm going to start building these C4s, make a lot of money. Everybody wants these things. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people just kind of jumped on this bandwagon, really didn't do a very good job building them, and just ran the reputation down. And a lot of these shops' attitudes were, if you bought a allegedly tricked out C4 from them and, got 3 passes out of it and broke it or it burnt up or whatever, the shops would say to you, well, I told you should have got a Power Glide or a 400. But you wanted to run that Ford junk. I told you. That was kind of the cop-out a lot of these guys did. And, I'm not making this up. I've heard this from so many people. People would call all the time years ago and when we had a lot of stuff and ask for help. Man, what do I do? I've invested, $3,000 into a C4 and it's not working. The guy that built it won't help me. What do I got to do to upgrade it? So I used to, sell a lot of parts to people and help them upgrade them and things. So, it was pretty doable to fix them. Usually, for most of the time, what people wanted to do, they work just fine. Now, if you're, one of these guys that built a 557 or a 601 cubic inch motor or something, and you want to run a C4, don't do that. It's just not going to last on something like that, especially on these heavy cars, these 4,000-pound cars and things. It's not a good unit for that. It's not a great truck unit. I've done a lot of these for early Broncos and things. And they worked fine for that, especially, if they had these Atlas transfer cases that had a lot of gear reduction and things. They held up very well for stuff like that. But, if you were building some sort of a monster truck or something with big giant tires and things, you'd break them. It's just not a great transmission for that. But lighter cars, not a ton of torque. They do really well, especially like when guys used to build those 4-cylinder Ford motors and they turbocharge them and they were making 1,000 horsepower with them and putting them in a pretty light car like a Pinto and things. God, those C4s would just run for years and never give them any trouble. Even though it was 1,000 horsepower, they didn't have a lot of torque, and the vehicles were light. They had very high stall converters. They had a lot of gear. They held up extremely well for that. So I think, horsepower is not really the best way to rate these, but most people relate better to it. I say roughly 800 horsepower, and, they seem to hold up really well at that level. But again, if this is a 557 cubic inch motor with, 7, 8, 900 foot-pounds of torque, not a great transmission for that. I've got them out there, and they work, and, it seems guys with like 521s and smaller engines, engines smaller, not as 521 is not really a small engine, but anything smaller than that or around that, drag application, a good amount of rear end gear. Yeah, they surprisingly have held up pretty well. So I don't like to pick on that unit, but on the other hand, I'm not one of these people that try to upsell it and just really, oh yeah, it'll handle that. No, oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, oh, you shooting nitrous on that 871 blower? Yeah, great. Yeah, sure. I'll build you a C4. No, I was never one to do that. Stuff like that, I would just say, look, do a C6 or something else. You don't want to be tearing this thing down all the time. So, that was kind of, around 800 horsepower roughly. They do pretty well. That's kind of what I rate them to. I don't like to promise them for a lot more than that, unless it's a low torque, light car situation, especially like those 4 cylinders we're talking about. I built those years ago. They've never come back. They've never even had to freshen them up a lot of times. They just work really well. I don't think a lot of people are building those motors anymore, but in any case, so I would say the biggest problem with the C4 is reputation got run down by, a lot of, just like I said, just some bad apples. And I'm not saying every shop did a bad job. There's shops, and the shops that are still around and still doing it typically are the ones, that survive that bubble, and they do a great job, and they, build a great product and everything. But like I said, you go back 5 or 10 years when everybody was just jumping on this bandwagon. Oh yeah, I can build a C4. I'll go get a, aluminum pan and one of those billet servos and a hardened input shaft, and yeah, we'll fix you right up. Red clutches. Well, it takes a lot more than that to get these things to live. And what I want to tell you is that, to me, C4 transmission is one of the hardest to build. And I'll give you a few minutes to stop laughing because I made that statement. But, honestly, yes, it's an old 3-speed. There's not a lot in there. It doesn't take a lot of ingenuity to tear it down and put it back together again. That's not what I'm saying. But to build it for something with power and for it to work correctly and last, not an easy task. And so in this video series, I'm going to show you, kind of step by step, component by component, show you just how much work really goes into this, because it's a transmission that doesn't have a lot of forgiveness at these power levels. So you really have to modify damn near everything in it. Or if you're not able to modify it, you've got to buy a lot of pieces, and just a lot of changes need to happen for it to work right. And I did a video already on the 2-3 flare thing, which that's a big question. It's a big issue people were having. And, go back and watch that video if you have not seen it. I'm going to put it on this playlist also. That kind of explains a lot of the reason that the 2-3 flare occurred. And, you know, at first it really wasn't an issue when people were realistically around the 400 horsepower mark. But as things kind of progressed 500 horsepower and beyond, the flare became more of an issue with these older valve body designs that, you know, were flooding the marketplace. So I cover that in another video, but I'm not going to talk about these a real long time. I'm going to just kind of get into this here and show you. And it is March, and it's one of our busiest times of the year, so I don't have a lot of free time to do this, but that's why I've been a little bit slowed down on sending these videos out. I just really haven't had time for it. I'm really flooded with work right now, and if you are one of our customers, we do appreciate the work, and if you're waiting on something, please be patient with me. I'm really, really busy and trying my best to get things out, and I'm working day and night to try to do that, so yelling at me doesn't help. I'm already doing what I can do, so appreciate you hanging in there with me, and working as hard as I can to get all these orders out. So thankful for the work, that's for sure, especially in these kind of shaky economical times that we're in. So we're happy about that, and appreciate your patience. So please subscribe to this channel and support it, and that way you'll get alerted as I do more videos on this. A lot of people have been asking about C4s, and I think it's kind of become a transmission. You know, most people nowadays, I think, work on them themselves, and so it's a big do-it-yourselfer kind of transmission. Like I said, a lot of people get soured by these shops just kind of jumping on a bandwagon and never really spending the time to really learn them, and just getting frustrated when they figured out it really wasn't as easy as they thought, and just kind of turned a lot of people off to the unit. So, but, you know, it is a small, flimsy transmission, but there's a lot of things you can do to it, and they hold up surprisingly well. Again, one of the reasons I'm a pretty big fan of Ford products, they just, even their low horsepower transmission was really a pretty good design. And I know some people will argue with that. Oh, that son of a bitch, it's got that 2-3 flare problem and this and that. Well, you know, there's ways to handle that. I almost don't even hear that anymore. Not if they've gone to our valve bodies. So I fixed that stuff years ago. Made some changes on what was out there in the marketplace, and that's really not something I hear about much anymore. Yeah, it might after they get really worn, you know, and you got to freshen them up, but it's not, you know, not a problem out of the gate like a lot of people were having years ago. So that has evolved. So anyways, so please subscribe. You'll get notified. I'm going to do several videos on the C4 and just kind of show you what's involved in it. Show you kind of how complicated the unit really is. Again, it's a simple unit, but getting it to hold the big power just requires a lot of changes and things like that. One of the big things with that unit, it needs pressure and it needs a lot of oil flow. And those are the two keys, especially oil flow, to get the the components to hold up. You got small planetaries and things in it. Really needs a lot of oil flow. So that's one of the things I really have worked on that unit quite a bit, is getting oil flow pretty high and all that kind of thing. So anyways, thanks for watching, and again, please subscribe, and you'll get notified as I do more of these videos. I'll do quite a bit on the C4. I've got more videos I'm going to do on converters, C6s, 4R70Ws, maybe some AODs, that sort of thing. I might even try something crazy like on these antiques. I don't, like Ford-O-Matics and Cruise-O-Matics and FMXs and things. I try not to do those too often anymore, honestly. I still do them for certain people, but I've gotten a little particular on those old units. They've just those are not a unit people like to invest a lot of money in, but unfortunately they've become expensive to build if it needs hard parts and things, so I'm kind of backed off on those a little bit. But anyways, I'm going to try to keep the C4s alive. My plan is to come out with more valve bodies for it, and 100% brand new valve bodies. This company's going to mainly focus on the valve bodies, probably not so much on gear train components, at least not at this time, but stay tuned for a lot of valve body developments. Forward pattern trans brake, maybe a second gear, activated trans brake, things of that nature, but mainly making it all brand new and trying to make it so it's, somewhat reasonable price, because it does cost a lot of money to make a whole valve body out of brand new, out of billet, but going to be done in-house, no Chinese stuff, 100% in-house USA. That way we can kind of control quality and cost, and we're not going to make big numbers, so it's better to do it in-house rather than try to offshore or something. I don't want to do that. So I'm one of those old school pro-America guys, like to keep everybody in this country working, so forgive me for that. That seems to be a dirty word nowadays, being proud of your country and manufacturing here, but it's important to keep the jobs here. So anyways, that's enough of this, and appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.